got more than only fams here today. We got fans, we got fams, we got team. We don't even know who's what's going on. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the show today. I am your host, of course, Craig Pasta Jardula, and along with me, of course, is the trusted one, Fiorella Isabel. She's here. How you doing, fam?
Fam, I'm a little bit better. My voice is still a little raspy, and if anybody saw me with Nick, they know. But I got a little bit of more liquid in me, and I'm ready to talk a little bit. So we'll see.
Well, you know, we'll have you talk a little bit, but there's so many things to say. I mean, so much is going on. I had friends just call me this morning out of the blue. Pasta, you got to explain to me everything's going on. I have no clue. Why does Israel want to kill or stop Iran again? Like, they don't even understand. It's like, why are we involved? Why are we taking Israel's side? Like, well, you got a lot to learn. And there's so much going on right now, fam. People are just confused. I don't know. I mean, it's very unique in the way that, okay, so the first CIA takeover was Mossadegh. When the CIA became the CIA, there was obviously forces before that that were in play. But when the CIA formed and officially became the CIA, their first coup revolution was, in fact, Iran. And they took out a president who was not really a religious leader. He was a secular leader in Mossadegh. But the argument was that the United States and England wanted that oil. So they took him out and they put the Shah there. And now we have people like Patrick Bet-David who are talking about the Shah, and that's kind of interesting, fun stuff. Like, you'll come out of the blue and be like, what? You know?
We just talked about that with Nick. Yeah,
I'm sure you did. But listen, before we get rolling, and there's so many things to talk about, let's bring in our co-host for the day. He always says, you know him, you love him when he comes on. I love him. He's amazing. He's been rocking and rolling with the Convo couch, a.k.a. the TruthWire, now for quite some time. Ladies and gentlemen, from the homeless left, Matt Weinglass is here.
Hey, guys. Happy Monday.
Yeah. What a Monday, right?
Right.
Fam, I remember getting a text a long time ago where we were just kind of getting rolling with the Convo couch, and I was at work, and you're like, Craig, get home. What? World War III has started. It's getting out of control. Well, I don't know if it started back then and it's just kind of where we are today, but it seemed like it started, fam, over the weekend. I don't know where you want to start with this, where you want to go with this. I'm going to leave it to you because there's so many things to talk about. Like I said, I got calls from people today saying what's going on. They want me to explain to them how it's happening. Fam, why don't you just have at it? I mean, I'll ask you one simple question. Are we in World War III currently officially now, or is this just another maybe flare up that things will get worked out over the weekend?
I mean, I think people could argue that we have been already in a sort of world war because we have Russia, Ukraine, we have the Israeli genocide on Gaza, we have now this with Iran, we had Syria. So there's a lot of things going on, right? But in World War III, in the sense that we think of it as like, World War II, no, this is right now regional, but it's clearly not just regional. And what I mean by that is Iran represents more than just Iran. Iran represents the resistance. They represent the axis of resistance. They represent the last bastion of General Wesley Clark's 7 countries in 5 years, right? You have Iran, the nation, the republic that has withstood just decades and decades of U.S. sanctions, interventions, vilifying them to make them out to be something they are not. And I was in Iran. I went to Iran, and I never get tired of saying what they tell you about Iran is completely false. Everything they tell you about Iran is not true. You can walk without first of all, it's not a hijab, it's a headscarf. And this is what they lean on, right? This is what they've been leaning on. What I want people to understand about what happened is that, number one, the United States and Israel are hand in hand. The United States knew exactly what Israel was going to do. Donald Trump is not an innocent bystander. This is his role to expand greater Israel. This is why we have Adelson, why we have the Zionist cabinet, why you have all of these warmongers behind him, not just Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, but literally the majority of them behind him. Number two, Israel and the United States, yes, we're working together, but also you have the plan of attack is not about nuclear war, or so to say, it's not about nuclear arms. It's not about nuclear weapons or Iran having them. Tulsi Gabbard, the chief intelligence officer of these operations, did this investigation, and she even admitted, yeah, there's no sign of Iran having these weapons. We're back to weapons of mass destruction, and it's what, 20 something years later.
Yeah.
And of course, a whole generation has gone by, and they think they can manufacture consent to go to war with Iran over this, but they need to take out Iran from the inside, which is why you saw Israel plan a long, detailed attack inside of Iran via Mossad, via these occupations that they've had for a while now. Iran is a country that has the liberal contingent and the resistance faction. It is not a country that is, 100% together. I would say the people are more so than the politicians, but you have this desire to decapitate Iran from the inside out. So this is why they went after all of the major officers, not just in the military, but also the science officers, the scientific big beacons that were leading the way towards the development of nuclear weapons. And this is why they wanted to go after them. If they can cripple Iran this way, they know that Imam Khomeini is just an inch away from perhaps an assassination, perhaps an attempt to just take him out, because he will be one of the last ones left. But there is a miscalculation here. There's a miscalculation into how Iran has also prepared, how they have their own strategy, how they have their own plan, and it's not worked. Iran did respond. They did retaliate massively. Did they retaliate strategically enough as Israel has? Not yet. We haven't seen that. We've seen Iran miss opportunities with what was it? I'm like blanking out now, but we've seen Iran miss opportunities before, and now you have the potential for Iran to actually go through and take Israel out to the point where Israel will be indefensible. And that has to happen, in my opinion, because the U.S. and Israel will not stop. And the Samson option for Israel is on the table, right? We're talking about the option of completely using nukes on Iran and perhaps Yemen. That's been a threat that I don't think is a light threat. So I think what we're seeing here is a very, very precarious situation where Iran has a lot of pressure on it, because how they act now will affect the entirety of the region for literally the entire future. Like there's so much hanging on this. So I want to ask you guys what you make of Iran's response, and if you think that Donald Trump is standing by the sidelines and he really doesn't want this war.
Well, first off, I'd like to point out that Tulsi, the DNI, said that Iran not only doesn't have a nuclear weapon, but they're not seeking to get one. So in other words, the fact that she came to the table and said they're not even trying to get it, Netanyahu has been saying for 30, 40 years now, they're weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon. We have to stop them. So it's kind of a little bit crazy. I mean, look, I'm just blown away by how hard Israel is pushing. And I did expect a little bit, at least when it came to this. I did not expect us to be getting involved with this whole Iran situation. I thought that Donald Trump would say, okay, you can have your Gaza war. You can do what you got to do. We'll get your parts of Syria, but you're not going to attack Iran. Like, I thought that would be at least the deal he would kind of coordinate for himself, because this has kind of really tanked his whole presidency. I've seen tweets out there too as well that now he's surpassed every single president when it comes to the bait and switch. He's been worse than even Obama. I mean, one of the biggest scandals of all time. I mean, I've said before, from the get-go that the Donald Trump presidency itself is a psyop. But I didn't think he'd go this hard, this fast. I didn't think he'd go that far in the paint. People have to understand that if Israel's involved, we're involved. We fund them. We give them their weapons. And we were shooting down Iranian missiles over the weekend, so it is kind of scary right now. I heard there's been a lot of deployment out there from troops getting sent out. It's a scary situation. I didn't think we would be where we're at today, but we knew from the list, and I know, Matt, you know about the list. Where did that list come from? I guess it did come from the Greater Israel Project. Iran, it's the last country on that list. So I guess they're going to get it done. And, American people never push back about what's going on. Obviously, they had the No Kings protest, but, they all got in the streets for that. And they flopped the whole thing from, no authoritarian, no ICE, no federal, stop with the deportation, which would have led to Democrats deport just as much, if not more. Obama was the deporter in chief to get rid of Donald Trump. We are confused. We are psyoped. And I say we, I said the American people. Where are we at? We're supposed to be the first line of defense right now. And the Donald Trump supporters are just going to keep on supporting him. And this is just, I'm almost lost for words that we're at this point here. I'm just hoping that everything settles back down because I don't understand how this couldn't lead to World War III. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, yeah. So all eyes are on Iran right now. This is probably one of the most significant moments in our entire history as far as how we move forward in a world that has been becoming more and more based on technocracy and the digital ID system and the globalization, all these things. These are the issues we've been talking about for months and months and months on our shows. The thing about looking at Trump and what Trump is going to be doing and how he's responding, I think that because the curtain's already been pulled back, the American people generally are realizing since October 7th, since we started paying attention to Israel's behavior in the Middle East, going through every single one of their neighbors, understanding what the Greater Israel Project is. Most people didn't know what that was before, 20 months ago. Here we are, this standoff with Iran. And I think that it is a distraction to talk about Trump and the bait and switches, when the reality is the reason there's baiting and switching is because it's not Trump in charge. It's never been Trump in charge. It's never been America in charge. It's been Israel in charge the entire time. And so I think that's a reality. It's a hard pill to swallow, but and we can theorize about what's going on in Trump's head. What's he thinking about when he goes to sleep? But I would, if I had to guess, I would think not only is he weighing over his head, there's nothing you can do. Once you say, hey, art of the deal, I'm on the table, let's do some negotiating, let's come up with a deal. If you're part of something that controls your decisions and your ability to negotiate, think about it. He was in a room with these Iranian negotiators saying, we're going to have a deal. He was supposed to come back yesterday, Sunday, and have close this deal. He can't do that now. Why? Because Israel killed the negotiators. They're dead. They're, as they say, eliminated. So how are we still talking about Trump's maneuvers, Trump's 60 chess, or Trump's in over his head to a point where, when is he going to do the right thing? And how are we going to get America to stay out of this? We may not have a choice here. So again, all eyes on Iran right now, because they have the pressure of the entire world on how they're responding. And some would say they're not responding fast enough. If they don't send this message beyond just a couple little missiles going into Tel Aviv, a couple little, cracks in the dam in the Iron Dome. If they got to do more than that, otherwise Israel's going into, and I think Fiorella, you talking about Samson option. That's a very real, a very scary thing that really puts another layer to when Netanyahu opens his mouth. Anytime anybody opens their mouth and says this is in America's interest to be part of this, what they're really saying is, if you don't participate, we will go to the Samson option, and that includes you. So in a sense, they're right. When Rabbi Shmuley says it's in America's best interest to go along with this, what he's saying is, we will turn on you if you don't. You have no choice. We got you by the balls, as they would say. So that's where we are. We have to start understanding how we can, as a country, as come together and say, how do we solve this? How do we get out of this mess? But we are being held hostage by this foreign entity, and we have to stop playing tribal politics and figure out a way to get out of this, and really just pray that Iran can make a bold move right now.
By the way, fam, just before you get going, I'm going to hand it off to you. I saw some arguments out there that, oh, nobody can defeat the military-industrial complex, not even Donald Trump. But when it comes to domestic policy, he's keeping his promise. I was like, really? His promise was to control all of America's data with Palantir and put us on a block, put us on the grid? No, he's not. He's been just abysmal from the get-go. And this, to me, is just like, it's got to be. I hate to say that he even had a legacy to begin with, but if there's any legacy he had, this had to wipe it completely out. The fact that, Israel attacked Iran. I mean, this is just lunacy. Go ahead, fam.
I would just go even further, though, because I don't think Israel, the state, right, as a whole, would be able to control us. They wouldn't have. Look, we've seen the paper tiger in action. We have seen how they've been penetrated. Their Iron Dome has failed. We have seen that without U.S. weapons and U.S. facilitation, they really wouldn't be there. But what we can talk about is Zionism. That Zionism is deeper than just Israel, than just the United States. It is this force that is really settled. And I think it's part of the intelligence apparatus. And I think you're touching that, Matt, when you talk about how we are captured. But I think it's not even just about Israel. I think it's beyond Israel. I think at this point, what we're seeing is the Zionist agenda has made it's has put out its tentacles into many countries and many peoples, to the point where after almost 2 years of a genocide, nobody can stop it except Yemen, who has launched missiles and attacked it economically, and Iran, who has obviously retaliated, to the entire world majorly cheering and saying, hey, this is great. They're getting a taste of their own medicine, which, by the way, still, I think it's like under 50 people. I think even under 30 people have passed, compared to the hundreds of thousands of people dead by this genocide. There's no comparison. But of course, what I'm getting at is, I think it's not, I think the United States and others have enabled the creation of this Zionist takeover. And it's not just the Zionists in Israel, but it's the entirety of their interest in developing greater Israel. And they specifically laid out in the Abraham Shields plan and in other aspects how they would do it by using the Gulf, which they have. They've literally took down Syria. That was also in the plan. Syria is now being weaponized, right, against the resistance, because it is now Giuliani and his regime ruling. You have Lebanon has been infiltrated, besides Hezbollah and some factions of the government that are, left there to the resistance. You have Iraq, certain factions there, but you also have U.S. military troops in Iraq. You have Yemen that is being targeted as well. And so what's left is Iran, right? And as you said, that pressure is there, because if Iran falls, everything else falls. And a lot of people are saying that they're not acting fast enough because they're questioning, how the hell was Mossad able to get inside Iran? How were they able to do that for some time? How was there not a plan to work with the resistance, like an actual organized plan? Maybe we don't know about it. I'm told that there's, strategies and so on and so forth. But for me, watching Syria fall the way it did, I will never look at a conflict or an attempt at regime change the same way ever again. Yeah. Because if Syria can fall, anything can happen. You can see, and Iran is not Syria, okay? Iran has a mighty military, more weapons. They're stronger economically, politically, militarily. Yes, that doesn't mean that they're undefeatable, that they're invincible. And I think people need to understand that. And this is the area where I, as an American, don't want to sit here and pontificate how a country should run its affairs. However, I will say, as an American, they should, number one rule, not trust the United States, not trust any of these allies. Mediation, in my opinion, in terms of not having nuclear weapons is Iran's death sentence. And I've seen Scott Ritter argue the opposite,
Yeah,
that Iran having nuclear weapons is going to be a death sentence for the world. I think the contrary. If
yeah,
Iran had nuclear weapons, this wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have attacked Iran. And
100%.
that's what I think would have happened. And this is why, unfortunately, in a world, as someone that came into this, wanting no weapons, wanting no
Yeah.
war, you have to have an ability to defend yourself against the only people who have used nuclear weapons against others.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I have been 100% on that page with you, Fiorella. The whole idea in my younger adulthood of just this optimistic idea that everybody could just get along and get rid of the nukes, the Superman way, like, hey, everybody just agree for peace. No, it's not like that. If you understand that there's an entity out there, the Zionist entity that exists, that the world domination, this idea, this biblical prophecy, this everyone else is goyim, and there's this supreme idea that this chosen people are going to ultimately succeed and everyone else will fail. You can't have that negotiation. There is no negotiation. There's only this maneuver to get to that goal. So once you have that, yes, 100%, Iran has to have some way to defend itself. And you're right. If they had the nuclear weapons, we wouldn't be in this position. So we have to start thinking differently, thinking like somebody who's not honestly at a negotiating table. Like they said, they murdered the Iranian negotiator. So Trump can't even do his art of the deal. He can't even do his thing because he's like, wait a minute, you killed the people we were supposed to meet on Sunday. This is a whole nother way we have to train ourselves to think in this time. And I want to, can I bring up with you, Fee? I have a kind of a question, your thoughts on this, the Iron Dome situation. When you go back to October 7th, you understand that the Hannibal Directive was implemented on purpose to gain the world's empathy and to get the support, the public consent. We have to go after Hamas. We got to do everything it takes. No red line for Netanyahu. This is the type of stuff I worry about when I look at the cracks in the dome. And I wonder, are they in strategic areas so it will look as if Israel needs more help? Are they in strategic areas where we know it's not a democracy? They say they're a democracy, but the people that are protected the most, the European Jews that are protected the most in that area, they're the ones with the underground shelters. They're the ones that are more safe than other parts. And I look at the geography and I wonder, does it have cracks in it on purpose in very strategic areas? I wonder that, because that will help you get more consent. We need to come to the rescue. Israel's in trouble. It might all be by design. It's very, very crafty, and I wouldn't write it off as part of the plan, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put it past them, I mean, they accused Hamas of building tunnels under residential areas, and
Yep.
they are the ones that have weapons in heavily populated areas. And this is the thing, like, how can we put anything past Israel after what they've done? I mean, we have to question everything that they
Yep.
do at this point. And and it's great seeing them in a way. And I will personally say this: I feel vindicated. A lot of people feel vindicated seeing Israel feel a fraction of what they have unleashed, not just on Gaza and on Palestinians, but literally on all their neighbors. Having said that, we know that that's obviously going to be used to once again victimize them. But I think what I'm seeing online, which isn't always the reality, but what I'm also hearing from people who are not political, who I know, is that wow, like what what Iran is doing is crazy. This is actually a good thing. People who are not political are coming out and saying, wow, it's crazy that they're experiencing what they're exporting, that Israel is experiencing some of what they've done. And I think this is also a very dangerous thing that I think the West, particularly Israel and its allies in the US intelligence apparatus, want to end, and they need to end. And I think what we're witnessing is an actual existential fight, because if Israel is able to take out Iran, the Greater Israel Project will come into formation extremely quickly. If Israel's not able to do that, then that won't happen. And the rest of the world can continue seeing how Israel is. So I think this is a much bigger deal than many are making it out to be or realizing. And so much has fallen on Iran. And there's a lot of just people trying to figure out how this all happened. But I think this has been long in the works from the US. We know that the people in power have long wanted war with Iran. The thing is, they can't manufacture consent so easily. So I wouldn't be surprised, as some people have also said, right, of seeing some sort of false flags. We're coming into the 4th of July, American Independence Day. We're seeing a lot of these protests come out. It is very, very interesting, the timing of all of this, of Palantir, and how people were at the No Kings March, but really left out what was happening in Iran. All of this is all tied together, and that's what's missing. We're not tying these things together.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, fam? Why is Iran always been the major thorn in Israel's side? I mean, why has Israel had such a hard on for Iran for so long that we are now seeing it come to fruition now?
Well, because Iran has been the symbol of what the axis of resistance is. Through it, you have seen the cooperation with Lebanon, the cooperation with Yemen, with Ansarullah. You've seen the cooperation with Hezbollah, Hamas. The resistance factions have looked to Iran as the nation that has the most power to defend itself, that has actually taken on not just the United States, but the entirety of Europe, that has taken on sanctions, that has been able to survive. They even had multiple attacks, and they were able to survive against a war with Israel. So for people, when they look at Iran, they look at a very powerful country, a very powerful people that haven't given up in spite of all of the propaganda and everything that's been thrown at them. And so when you look at the countries that were taken out one by one, and you even had Syria that towards the end, right, was kind of deviating away. Bashar al-Assad was advised to gear towards the Gulf and away from Iran. You have Iran listed on the Hillary Clinton emails as being the main objective to isolate Iran from everybody else. That has been the factor. If they can isolate Iran, they can more easily form new relationships with its major allies, Russia, China, now Pakistan. I find it very interesting what Pakistan said, that they're willing to nuke Israel if Israel nukes Iran.
Yep.
Because that also involves China. That you have this whole scenario there. Iran is a very powerful country that's survived for centuries, and on top of that, you have a very vulnerable resistance, and you have the fact that they killed Hussein Nasrallah. You have the fact that they killed the former president and the former foreign minister of Iran. You have the fact that they've killed multiple leadership in the military and multiple scientists that were leading the way in nuclear development. So you have this fear really taking over a lot of places. What happens if Iran goes? It is not the same as any other country going, because most of them are already captured that are left. It is the fact that they're done. And this is something people don't want to say or talk about. And again, I'm not trying to be black-pilled or spread negativity, but I suspect Iran has a plan. I hope that they learned from Syria. I hope that they're not going to trust the United States. As Matt said, they killed the negotiators. Why the hell would you sit up at the table? But what I do know is that there are people within Iran that are far more liberal and willing to normalize with the West, while there are also people that are not. And I worry about Khamenei. I worry about the resistance factions in Iran, and what that's going to mean for the region, really. So a lot is left to be seen. I don't want to say that nothing is being done. I think there's, we need to look at what they're doing, how they are maneuvering. But Operation True Promise 2, they really didn't go full out, right? They could have had an opportunity to take out Israel. And what a lot of people are saying is that this is the opportunity. They're not going to stop. Israel's not going to stop. Their goal is greater Israel. Their objective is greater Israel. This is the moment to do that. This is a moment to not allow that. This is a moment to continue the research on nuclear weapons. And that might be a controversial thing to say, but if they don't do that, they're going to come after them. Somebody else is going to attack them, because they will not allow Iran to survive as it is now. It is too strong. It is too radical. It is a representation of the resistance that stands in the way of their the objective.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing into this, Fia? I'm curious on your thoughts, because I did a little research on this. There's an organization. It's called it's SCO. It's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This was formed in 2001. There's 10 different countries involved. Iran was one of the later ones that joined in 2023, very recently. This includes China. It includes Russia. It includes, you mentioned Pakistan and India. So we don't talk about this group because it doesn't really come into effect unless there's a nuclear threat. Then everybody gets into formation. And there's a very, very familiar clause. We know about this clause because it's very familiar in NATO. And that is, an attack on one of us is an attack on everyone. So when we talk about World War III, it's not just shock and awe to get people to get scared. We're saying here, and you mentioned Pakistan, this is, if there's a threat of nuclear threat to Iran, they will mobilize into this. I guess SCO will come into play. And you have Pakistan, you have India, and you have Russia and China. So all of this, everything we've been dealing with Russia, with the Ukraine war, everything gets sidelined, and this becomes everything. And then if we're going to go get involved with this, with Israel, this is what you call a massive world war. There's no way around it. And they will defend it with nuclear weapons. This is not a joke. Why don't we know about this? I just found out about this organization. What can you shed a light on this feed? Is this going to come into play, as Pakistan is being very vocal right now about getting involved?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because I think when it comes to like the Shanghai Cooperation or organization, it's a very diplomatic organization, and you have very geopolitically diplomatic countries like China, Russia, India, Pakistan. First of all, these countries have very, very good growing relationships with each other publicly. You have the trade between these countries economically. You have the cooperation in terms of just communication, tourism, and even geopolitical meetings. You have many of these countries participate in Russia's SPIF, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. They participate in a lot of these different, blocks, BRICS, whatever. But what we have to also look at is the recent treaty between Iran and Russia. And it's a military type of treaty, but it is not binding in terms of the US or Israel attacking Iran. Russia is not going to interfere directly unless they are directly hit or involved. And that's how Russia is going to operate. So that's Russia when it comes to that. Their deal with North Korea, as I mentioned before, is different. It involves military involvement, direct military hits, and all of that. In terms of the SCO, I've heard more so about Pakistan's statement. There's a lot of denouncements. There's a lot of things that happen in the forefront. But then you still have China having, these trade deals with Israel, and also Russia having a relationship with Israel to the point where Israel and the US are looking for it to mediate between Iran, right? So It's actually interesting to watch because there's a lot of decisions for these countries to make. Are they going to side with the US and Israel and the West, who have continuously screwed them over and over again, who, Russia's technically at war with right now, let's be real. Still, I think that war is obviously dwindling, as you said, but it is still, they're still at negotiations, and we've seen the back and forth, the tug and pull. We've seen that Zelensky has complained, I don't know if y'all saw this, that Israel didn't send Ukraine weapons that they had promised. So we clearly see where the lines are drawn. The problem is there's attempts to normalize these relationships too. So while we may see like these clear like alliances formed, a lot of these countries don't want to go to war. They want to put economics first. They want to put some type of resolve and resolution. But Iran is an ideological nation. It's fighting for a cause bigger than itself. It's fighting for something that is morally righteous, also protecting Palestinians as well. That is not necessarily the pragmatic aspect of it. So I think what we're going to have to see, and we may be surprised as to how China, Russia, Pakistan play this out. I sense India will go with the West. They always do. They always have for a while. But Pakistan, I think, is a wild card. China is left to be seen. I think Russia will try to like placate to both sides.
Why does China always just stay on the sidelines, though? I mean, China is very much intertwined with Iran. They have a lot of deals together, the Belt and Road Initiative there as well. You know what I'm saying? Why is China just sitting on the sidelines? I mean, I know they haven't been involved in any type of hot fire since 1973. But, I thought that in this particular situation that I wasn't so much looking at Russia. I was looking at China for them stepping up and making a lot of big noise on this whole situation. I mean, why are they sitting back knowing that they're on the hit list next? I mean, even Peter Hegseth have said that, and Alex Karp, I believe, said something that, America will be fighting a war on several fronts. And that next front will be China. Why are they sitting back? Why don't they do something or say something?
Their economy is so intertwined with the U.S. economy, Pasta. Like it just is. I mean, they're an economically driven, pragmatic nation. People think like that they are driven by their communist ideology, and I don't think I haven't seen that to be the case. There's again a difference between what's said diplomatically at UN Security Council meetings and at press briefings where they say, oh yeah, we condemn what Israel's doing. Anybody can condemn what Israel's doing, but to actually put your country at a offensive approach against Israel and the United States, that's a significant leap to take when you're a country that's trying to focus on its growth, on how to maintain its population fed. These are the pragmatics. It's same with Russia. Like they have too much going on. They're not looking at it in this way. Something, unless they're directly affected. And they're also non-interventionist countries, meaning they look at like any sort of intervention as something that the West would do, which is why they don't do it. Right. So I think there's something to be said about how they approach things too. I don't think it's just like they don't care, but I also think that for me, it's at the economy. Like there's definite economic motive to not. What do wars do? I mean, at the end of the day, any nuclear war would destroy everybody's economy. Like, where would we be with that? And a lot of these countries are far too advanced to have that be disturbed with. Let's be real.
So there's a good case to be made that most of these countries in this region and that are in these alliances, they're going to play it cool, be conservative about their response to everything going on right now with Iran, Israel. But the one that sticks out, we should go back to Pakistan. This is the most important one because obviously they have nukes. Obviously they've been vocal about getting involved. So we have to look at Pakistan over all the rest. And I saw that this is interesting because one of our co-hosts on Homeless Love, Jay Scott, shared this out. I went into it to look to see what is the timing. There was an earthquake recorded 2 days ago right off the coast of Pakistan, 4.6 in the water there. This has all the signs of testing nukes off into the water. This is something that we can't say for sure, but it's interesting timing. This was on June 14th. Right, like, so they're making this announcement about how we're ready to come and play here, and it's possible that they might be testing their weapons right now off their coast. And this is just speculation, but these elite out of all these countries, they're the ones being vocal right now. So we really need to look at Pakistan and what happens if they do get involved militarily.
Well, the whole thing is that do you really trust them to? I mean, they've been going. There's been chaos in Pakistan right now with Imran Khan being jailed for so long and taken out of power. You know, I see a lot of it as just kind of quelling their population, you know, and appeasing them. But I don't know if they'll do anything at the end of the day. It seems like their government is bought and paid for by the West, anyways. Who knows? But it's interesting, and a lot of people are throwing out HARP out there too as well. You know what I'm saying? You know, this whole situation. It is they are the odd man out. It's interesting they did say that because they are mostly a Muslim nation. But fam, I also want to kind of talk about the fact that in Gaza, since they've been all, you know, busy dealing with the hypersonic missiles of Iran going on, what's been going on with the resistance over there in Gaza? I've heard that there's been now coordinated attacks since they got their hands full and they can't just air blitz anymore. They can't go crazy just blitzkrieging from the skies because they have something else to worry about. What's been going on the ground over there? I heard you and Vanessa have been doing some reporting on this. You're muted.
Sorry. I think that Vanessa had posted earlier on X. I don't know if we can find her tweet. Let me see if I can pull it up. But basically, this is actually one of the reasons that Yemen has attacked Israel in many ways that it has. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people wanted Iran to go after Israel, because it literally stops them from attacking Gaza, from attacking the Palestinians. And it's crazy because when you saw these missiles, these ballistic missiles heading towards Tel Aviv, a lot of this was being watched not just by the people all over Lebanon, even Gaza, but also occupied territories in the occupied Palestinian territories where they're fighting their own battles against Israel. And they're watching these missiles being there. Every day they're dealing with the Zionist agenda, and they're watching these missiles go there. And it does something to you, not just like, you know, emotionally, but you're like, okay, well, now I have the opportunity to do something. And so basically the resistance has organized and has started attacking the Zionists on the ground because all of their attention has been on going after Iran. So it's like what's the phrase? Two birds with one stone, because you're seeing not just obviously attacking Israel, but you're seeing the fact that Israel can't handle it. You're seeing the fact that Israel, for all that it's been built up to be, is really not capable. So Vanessa said, now that the air bombardment of Gaza has been reduced because of the Iranian missiles attack waves, because they came in several waves, and I think some of us haven't slept in days. I'm one of these people just watching, following what's been happening. The Zionist forces on the ground are being successfully attacked by the Palestinian resistance. It demonstrates how the U.S. and Israel rely upon the blitzkrieg of aerial bombardment and slaughter to achieve their aims. These are things that obviously Hamas and such don't have. When deprived of that advantage or it is reduced, they are outgunned by the ingenuity and the righteousness of the regional resistance factions. Meaning, like, they use whatever they can, whatever they have. So therefore, they're more motivated because this is a survival thing. Palestinian resistance ambush an Israeli occupation forces IOF unit in Khan Yunis, which is Palestine. The IOF responded by deploying a helicopter, which helped reduce casualties among their forces. Details to follow. So, I've just heard essentially that they're so caught up in trying to get at Iran that now they're being defeated by people who have next to no weapons, next to anything, who have been decimated. And that just shows you, like, that's what I'm saying when I say that about Israel. Like, it's not that they're that powerful. They are held up by this whole Zionist agenda that exceeds beyond them. It without all of this support and power that is beyond Israel, I think at this point they wouldn't be able to do it. So, is it possible to take down Israel? Absolutely. But the bigger question is it possible to take down Zionism that is embedded in, much of the Western world, and that the US has weaponized and used to achieve their objectives? That's going to be a much harder thing to do, I think, to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah.
What tweets do you have over here that you want to show, Jayme? I see you kind of showing these things. Nothing. Okay, so that's nothing. Fam, did you have anything you wanted to show or talk about real quick, or?
Yeah, I just didn't get a chance to put it. Jayme, if you can just go to my X real quick, and pull it up. I think it might be one of the first or second tweets. There's a couple of things over there. Do we have a guest coming in? Do you have a guest coming in?
I don't know where he's at. He's 15 minutes late, so I'm assuming he's not coming.
Okay. No, I didn't lose my voice. Indy left, said, did I lose my voice yelling at Zionists? No, it's kind of fitting though, right? Like,
you were yelling at your screen, your Twitter screen, when you're like, no.
Yeah, no. I think I had actually the vid. Okay, down a little bit more because I just shared a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I sound so awful, guys. I'm so sorry. Why certain people show up when like it's like people no.
I gotta watch your RBN conversation. I just found out you were on there.
Yeah.
That sounds
cool. You can go down, Jayme. Yeah, it was actually pretty much good discussion. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, that. So I kind of already talked about it. I want to ask you all the question. What is your, I think I understood your opinion, but Bassa, I'm not sure about yours. Do you think that Iran having nuclear weapons will help or sink them? Or does it even matter at this point? Because I think either way, the objective remains the same, right? I just don't see.
Well, I was sharing Friendly Brilliance tweet about the North Korea, and North Korea seems to have bought themselves a lot of protection because they do have a missile, a nuke, and I would think that it would be better and more beneficial if Iran had a nuke. But still, I mean, would that stop the overall plan? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? The West, along with the Zionist nation, have some really cynical, nefarious, dark, genius in a way, social engineering creatures out there. So it seems like they'll always find a way to manufacture consent or find those who will support this, like they have in the United States right now. Donald Trump was just a master plan for them, right? Because he gets praised and more excuses are made for him than Barack Obama, for crying out loud. So they understand that. So I don't know if it will mean anything in the bigger picture, but I think it would be more of a deterrent. And that's why I kind of shared the tweet about North Korea. So I don't know, but who knows at this point?
Scott Ritter's wrong. That's the point. That's not, you don't, you don't say, hey, de-arm yourself and everything will be fine. If you think that Israel is acting in good faith, every single time they lie, every single time. I mean, I can't leave. The list is so long. We should have been keeping a list. Like it's probably up to 1,000 things since October 7th, just alone. Just even from, hey, look, and all the deflection and the display, everything blaming Hamas, and everything you say about them is a confession. You see it every single time, whether it's how you using hospitals to hide underground, whether it's the killing of babies and the raping of women and the way you treat your hostages and everything. Just the list is so long of all the lying. How the hell could anyone think? Especially someone like Scott Ritter, who should know better about this. How could anyone think that that's a good place to get to? Iran not having any way to defend itself in this climate. If everybody was acting in good faith, then yeah, I think that you could make a case for that. Again, I used to think that my younger self would think optimistically that would be a goal we could all get to. You cannot get to that goal if you have an entity acting in such horribly bad faith, this supremacy mindset and world domination into the afterlife or whatever the hell this comes from. It's not, you cannot reason with it. You cannot negotiate with it, as Trump has found out. There is no art of the deal. There's just how do you fight back with that? You have to, like, North Korea is a great example. You have to put yourself in a position where they're going to think twice about effing you when you turn your head. That's it.
North Korea wouldn't have survived this long.
Yep.
If they didn't have them. That's it. Yeah, that concept of if Iran has nuclear weapons, they're violating this treaty, blah blah blah. That whole thing was put out by the West to control Iran, to make sure that they can, keep it under wraps, right? It's not like a fair, equitable transaction or agreement. It is a completely, unbalanced type of relationship. So you can't base that on just because it's the law. And I think that's where that mindset is coming from. Well, the law said this and Iran is breaking the law. Well, who put out that law? Who made that law? Who's, what's the purpose of that law? And I think that's unfortunately what ends up happening in my experience is like a lot of the military, America first people tend to go back to that. At the end of the day, it's going to be the US versus Iran. So they're going to choose the US. And I'm not saying that that's how it has to be. But what I am saying is, like, we're getting to the point where we are continuously creating more and more reasons for people to come attack us. And not once has anybody actually come and attack us. And don't get me started on 9/11. We know wasn't. Yeah. So like it's this whole idea of this fear mongering. I'm not convinced that we can convince people as easily to manufacture consent with Iran unless they throw out some sort of false flag, which I think is what they're thinking about doing.
And just to be clear, if 19 hijackers with box cutters attacked us, we've already solved that problem, Fee, because we take our shoes off now at the airport. So that's problem solved. So no, we won't be attacked again. They got us once. They got us once with the box cutters. But no, that won't happen again. So
did you guys see the building thing?
What's that?
By the way, how the building fall, like the
oh my God, the controlled them. Yeah. I mean, 3 of them, by the way, 3 buildings.
Well, compared to the Indian, there was the Indian crash, right? The plane that crashed, and how that building didn't collapse. And it was like a small, it was like a small building. And then everybody's like, oh, look at how, this plane that was, even smaller.
Yes. Yeah. This is how this is what happens when a plane that goes in a building. This is what actually happens. Oh man.
Well, I mean, they haven't attacked us since then because of what George Bush did with the preemptive attacks. I hate that excuse that they keep using all the time. We got to have preemptive strikes. I think everything still stems from 9/11 when they continue to, say these things. And this is why, they justify what Israel did. You know what I'm saying? It was a preemptive attack. I think the scary thing is that, the leaders they went after, and it's crazy because Fiorella mentioned that, we killed 4 people. Iran has killed 4 people, maybe in their attacks, but Israel doesn't care. It will kill a whole, apartment buildings full of people just to go get certain people and justify it. Oh, we got the 2 commanders. Yeah, but you took out 58 people with them to get that. And they'll use that and they'll say it's justified. It's scary the way the West kind of justifies all their actions versus the way Iran has actually been conducting their warfare. It's something we saw when we were comparing Ukraine versus Russia again. And by the way, fam, has there been any news on what's going on? What does this all mean for Russia, Ukraine? I mean, is that just done? Are we done talking about that? Is it over? Is it?
I don't think so.
Is there something planned? I mean, how are they going to work stuff out right now with this going on? And what's really upsetting me is the fact that Israel has been funding Ukraine from the get-go. And Ukraine got mad because they just didn't really fund them. So why does Russia have this attitude towards Israel when Israel has been funding Ukraine the whole time?
Because there's like 1.5 million Russians living in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Because they have these cultural ties. There's Russian Israelis here in Russia.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot
Russian
of that
oligarchs
influence.
that are Israeli, correct? Russian Israeli oligarchs. A lot of people don't even know.
No, there's a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing, you know, and it's not, again, it's the same as in the US. A lot of people don't like that, you know. They're like, why is this a thing? Especially, you know, you should see a lot of the Russian channels, I would say the majority, they're very they're supporting what Iran's doing, right? They're very much like on board with what Iran's doing. But, you know, the reality is on a presidential diplomatic level, realpolitik, there is that relationship, and people need to understand that, because a lot of people go on social media and they're like, but why hasn't Russia done anything to help Tehran? I'm like, because that's not how this works. They're not going to get involved unless they feel like there's an absolute need to, you know, and that's it. I mean, it's not ideological for them. So again, like, we have to look back as to how these countries are developed and how they're doing conducting their affairs, and really see. And unfortunately, for Iran, they're, you know, some of the few that aren't afraid to push back. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think that, you know, people say they could push back more because they could have done it during True Promise too, and they didn't, which allowed, you know, Israel to then come and attack them the way they did. You know, obviously that happened. That was a blow to Iran. Let's be honest. You know, assassinating top leadership, assassinating top minds of Tehran. That's a huge blow, and not just to Iran, but to the possibility of defending the region.
I wish our guest would have showed up today, fam, because what you're talking about too, there just seems to be some like intertwinement. Like there's this understanding of, like, you said there's a lot of liberals in Iran. I think the social engineers understand that the way the world looks at America, right? The way the Chinese look at America, the Japanese look at America, they idolize us, our movies, our way of life. They really do, in a way. I mean, it's like, oh, they hate us for our way of life. No, I think that the American, the Western social engineers understand that these other countries are dealing with people who really still do idolize Americans, and they still kind of look at us, and they want to have a relationship with us instead of fighting us. And that's what's holding them back. But I mean, also what's really upsetting and discouraging is that it just seems like China and Russia are going to always just be second fiddle to the United States. The United States will always do what they want because, you know, at the end of the day, they know that Russia and China are going to take a backseat, and they continually take a backseat right now. You know, I mean, I understand we don't want World War III, but China is economically entwined with Iran. There's a lot of deals going on, Belt and Road. Russia's intertwined with Iran, and yet they're taking a back seat. It's just so mind-boggling at times.
Yeah. Well, if I could actually circle back to this 9/11 thing, because one of the things our responsibility is that we have to have these conversations, right? We have to, you know, dig in deep. We get called conspiracy theorists. That was the original one, right? That was the original one. I remember the first time I brought it up with family and friends way back in the day. They were like every deflection, and I was just like, oh my God, I was so heartbroken. Like I thought I was giving you some good things to think about. Nobody want to talk about it. I was like, oh, that sucks. Well, you know what's so interesting? Everything that's happened in these last, and I keep citing October 7th because I think that's got people's attention that weren't paying attention to geopolitics, weren't really paying attention to what happened outside that didn't affect us. And they're seeing a genocide play out on their phones, and then they turn on the TV and they're lying to you about what's happening. And now Free Palestine is now going to be illegal because it means you hate Jews. Everybody knows that's not okay. And now in the last few days, I think this is the time more than any to bring back up things like 9/11, to circle it back to people who were back then said, no, I will never believe that our government would do such a thing. How dare you? Why don't you move out of here if you even think that? Those people might be willing to have the conversation now because they're so frustrated when they see that Israel's making all of our decisions, and all you got to do is bring it up again in a way where maybe it wasn't us conniving and plotting. Maybe we were being told. Craig said at the beginning of the show today, it's the Wesley Clark reveal, right? It's the 7 countries in 5 years. And I think there's people that never wanted to have that conversation. If they thought it was Dick Cheney, they thought it was Wolfowitz, they thought it was Rumsfeld, these were the conniving psychopaths that are us, they're American. They would never do that. But if you say, wait, who gave them that order? Who was above that? And then you just play clips of Netanyahu time and time again telling us to go to war on behalf of them, they might be willing to consider, wait, how did we get suckered into that weapons of mass destruction again in the first place? What actually happened? What are they going to do to get us into this next one right now against Iran? So I think we should start these conversations again with people who never wanted to have them before, but now are kind of scared to death of, wait, what's going to happen tomorrow if we can't even decide, make foreign policy decisions for ourselves, and this foreign country is going to do it for us and trick us into another war? Now's the time to talk to them, I think.
I would also good. I mean, it's going to be interesting, the conversations where we're going to get them and how we're going to get them. It's very nice to see a lot of people talking about, oh my God, Donald Trump has now destroyed his own legacy. He was a fraud. He was a psyop. And if there was only a couple of us who were screaming this before he even walked into the office, before he was even a nominee, some of us were screaming this shit. It's just ridiculous. It's upsetting. And it's upsetting to see him still getting protected, but, well, nobody can take on the military-industrial complex. I think we know that now, guys, that you can't take on the military-industrial complex, but at least he's fulfilling his promises on the domestic side. Yeah. As Palantir is sitting there going like this. And you got people like Laura Loomer, who fam loves, bragging about going, taking Palantir to California, to fix all the situation there. The neo-xenophobics is what I call them. That's been the
saddest part, Craig. That's been the saddest part to see the right-wingers that we got their back with the maggots. We got their back on January 6th. We said you have a right to protest. You have a right to even if we don't agree with you, you have a right. And when you see your own government turn on you, your own federal agencies, like put psyops in place, put feds, literal feds, like Epps was there saying, we're going into the Capitol, we're going into Ray Epps. So that happens. How dare they turn their back on people they disagree with when you see the same thing happen in the movement, riling people up, making them domestic terrorists, take away their due process. In this case, it's even worse because it's like those immigrants came in and they're foreign terrorists. Let's teach them a lesson. Laura Loomer, how dare you? And how dare anybody look at that tweet and retweet it with this? Matt, this is exactly the opposite of how we need to treat people when it's time for our rights to come into play. It's time for our First Amendment to come into play. You have a right to protest. Look at the optics going on. Look at the situation that doesn't seem right, and pay a little more attention rather than saying, teach them a lesson, bring in the surveillance state.
So I was at I forgot the name of it, the American Project, which was a right-wing, group of Trumpers talking about election integrity. And I was part of the solutions committee. And at the very end, I was talking about, some of these people. I was talking against Denise D'Souza, however you say his name, who said that we need to put cameras on all the drop boxes. And I was like, this is crazy. You don't have to put cameras on the drop boxes. You should eliminate them. You want to put cameras on the drop boxes, ladies and gentlemen? The next thing you know, the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset is knocking on your door, because now they got pictures and cameras everywhere filming you. This is not what I want. And I'd like to keep Klaus Schwab out of the American House as long as we can. Later on that evening, when she came up to me, Laura Loomer, to speak, she's like, I've never heard a leftist talk about the fourth industrial revolution, the Great Reset like you. That's amazing. And here she is today talking about, let's bring Palantir to California. These people, the Donald Trump thing, we saw it with the Obama thing. No matter what he said, no matter what he did, no matter what happened in Libya, no matter what happened in Honduras, they would still support this guy no matter what. Donald Trump's people are hold my beer. We'll show you we'll support him even more. But it's interesting with this going on right now because there has been a big contingency of America First people who truly are American first and don't want to be Israel first. And they're speaking pretty loud. I don't know. To me, it's kind of weird to say, Zionism is bad, but still support Donald Trump. That's their attitude. That's very weird. I think it's an oxymoron. So, what can you do?
Yeah. They're speaking out. It's good to see. So there's some furious MAGAs. It's great. We never saw, by the way, we had 4 years of Biden, of demented Biden and his genocide starting crap and his proxy war and his locking down society and punishing. All the list is long, all the horrible things that happened in that administration. And you didn't really see anybody ever that voted for Biden, that supported it, ever say anything publicly and complain about it. Say, no, it's perfectly fine. It's just a stutter. He's doing everything perfectly fine. So I like seeing MAGAs be angry. I like seeing them be vocal. It's nice. Is it going to change anything? Probably not. But at least out of principle, at least showing this is what it looks like when you hold people accountable that you voted for. You should be the loudest. You should be louder than the opposition. Opposition's already had a problem. You voted for them. They're not doing what you wanted them to do, what you gave them your money, attention, time, energy, vote for. So tell the world that you got duped. I like hearing it. Again, it might not change anything, but at least we're hearing it, right?
It's better than if Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch. So,
yeah,
to say the least. I mean, I don't think people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are 100% like genuine about it. I feel like there's some politicizing, and even with Tucker, like he won't full on, go after Trump, although now they're having a feud or whatever. I still think that's somewhat controlled. But I think there are people that supported, like regular people that did support Trump that are like, yeah, we're not supporting him anymore. And I think that says everything.
Yeah. That's good.
But they're all, most of them, many of those people you talked about are still playing the lesser of two evils game. And at the end of the day, they'll still say, well, Donald Trump is still the lesser of two evils than Kamala Harris. That's why today's guest who ditched us was so important to talk about the greater picture about what's going on. Because, guys, I don't know if you saw this too as well. And everybody's been talking about, okay, we're not going to go fight, and I'm sure when you spoke to Nick from RBN today, he even said the stuff like, American troops shouldn't be fighting for Israel, breaking at least 25 air tankers en route to the Europe and the Middle East from the U.S. right now. So I don't know what they're planning on doing as far as how much they're going to help or getting troops involved. But we're definitely aiding across the board help of what's going on. So if Israel goes to war, we go to war in one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
all right. So, guys, anything else to finish on up? We got some hard outs. I got some things to do. You got things to do, fam. You've been pushing it with that voice. You should give a rest. No partying tonight. Matt, you got anything going on where you can let people know, and then Jayme, you got something you want to throw in there? I see you got something. Who's this?
This is a message for Professor Mirandi of Iran, so-called professor. I've never heard of you in any of the universities that I know and like. Firstly, you can come on our TVs with all your facts and all your reading, but our journalists here in the West, buddy, they have a way of doing things. Yes, they have talking points and they have scripts. And if you go off those scripts, that's on you, bucko, with your Iranian civilian casualties. There are no Iranian civilians. You think we're stupid. You're all evil little guys. Sky News told us that. And how dare you hurt and produce these unprovoked attacks on our journalists and smile? How can you be smiling at a time when people who have celebrated and enjoyed children being killed for 20 months are now having to run down into shelters? Some of those shelters are 58 steps to get into them. You monster.
If you guys didn't catch it, he's making fun of the Sky
Yeah.
News journalists that are constantly crying whenever
Yeah.
Morandi or anybody else that's worth salt
Yeah.
goes after them. Yeah.
Crocodile tears there. Yeah.
He said nobody should have to live like this. Is
Yeah.
what one journalist said as they were down there, and I saw them kind of turning away, like, you know, immigrants in Israel and Tel Aviv, not letting certain people down to the bomb shelters. It was very interesting, very telling.
Really?
Yeah, it was a bunch of
Yeah,
couple Thai people were trying to get down in there, like had Thai restaurants, and they wouldn't let them go down.
This is not a democracy.
Jesus
Israel's not a
Christ.
democracy. It's a hierarchy. There's a ranking system, and they can pretend all they want because they have 3 languages of street signs on every corner. Ooh, look at your democracy. But at the end of the day, yeah, when push comes to shove, there's a ranking order of value, and that's how it works in a non-democracy. It's not. I mean, not that we're in a democracy, but I mean, we would never be so blatantly obvious about the divide there. I mean, we're a lot more subtle about it here, but it's so obvious, and they preach about it like they're so high up on their horses, their evolutional process. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So of course, when it comes down to it, get the hell out. You're not one of us. Good luck.
Matt, is there anything about the protests that have been that you want to chat about? Anything you saw this weekend and how it was? Because for me, like, look, my friends who live in Orlando, I have never seen a protest in Orlando. The fact that there was a protest in Orlando is like, to me, it's like, and people went and there was a lot of people. To me, that's like a big deal. To me, it's like, okay, but I know this protest in particular was heavily pushed by the Democrats,
Sure.
that it was a completely controlled Democrat protest. And I always say that doesn't mean that the issues that people are talking about aren't real.
Right.
It just means that the protests are captured, right? But I honestly, in my entire life, I've never seen people in Orlando go out for a protest.
Right.
So I'm wondering, like, what's going on that is this real? Like, are people actually mad enough that they're going out to these protests, or is it just like they're mad about everything, so they're just going to go to these protests that the Democrats are organizing with a ton of money and a ton of support and a ton of whatever?
So this is very well coordinated and crafted well in advance. We saw this, and it took a while to figure it out because we went to the, you guys know, we checked in. Actually, the first conversation we had was on TruthWire last Monday when we first came back those opening weekend, right? Because LA is where it launched, and then the rest of the country followed suit into what we call this No King's Day, which is 100% captured by the Democratic Party, specifically the billionaires. We had the the heiress to Walmart family, they basically buying up the entire thing. And like, you tell people this and they go, a lot of people go, well, that I didn't know that, I'm concerned. Some people say, no, you're lying. I go look it up. But even if they believe it and they go, okay, they say, well, what is it they're buying? They don't understand. They go, people are out here for a real thing, so who cares? Like, what does it mean? What are they buying? And I try to explain to them what they're buying is the ability to censor other ideas besides the only one idea they wanted to bring to the, basically run into the finish line. And that idea is it goes back to election time tactics of Trump is Hitler. He's having a birthday party just like Trump does just like Hitler did. Nazi Germany's coming to America, and this is what you voted for, and we want him out. And that's it. It's a very narrow message, and it's not where it started. We know last weekend it started with real ICE raids, real families getting ripped apart, real people getting like their graduations and elementary schools raided, and people it was horrible what happened. All of that was by design. That fueled the fire to get people in the streets the previous weekend here in LA. And it manifested itself. It was and those were, again, this is how many times do we have to say this? We have to tell people these are good things to say, abolish ICE and stop these raids. But Trump had no intention of doing it longer than this very short period of time anyway. It was a big shock and awe to get people riled up. He said on record before the No King's Day happened, he said on record, and a lot of people didn't even hear this because they didn't put this on MSNBC, but he said, we're going to scale it back. We're not going to go after the people here 20 years in the hospitality industry, farmers. We're gonna let them be because they're cool, and we didn't want. Well, of course he said that. It's not because the protesters came out in droves and he didn't know they would do that. Everything went as planned. So he was going to do that anyway. He can't upset the hotel chains and all the big ass supermarkets and the Krogers. He can't upset them. So it was just about this initial way, get people in the street. And what we noticed, this is huge. We go out to City Hall. This was on Saturday. We're at City Hall, and we noticed that the entire demographic has changed in LA. The previous week, it was like a Latino younger crowd that's out there. Very diverse, of course, but that now it's all older white people. And it reminded me of election time. It's stop Hitler, stop Trump, the very strategic having Trump with the crown and the X through the crown. This is all deliberate marketing messaging. And then we found out this part's important. There were organizations that were very well intended that wanted to be part of this nationwide movement. And they were trying to align their messaging, which was stop NATO, stop Zionism, stop imperialism. Imperialism, as you know, as our audiences know, is the root of immigration problems. So the fact that they were willing, that they wanted to come out and align these messages, not to mention stop the surveillance state, Palantir, which nobody in the crowd knew about this. And again, it's not their fault. They don't know better. They're out there for good reason. They don't know that these are the things we really need to be talking about. But those organizations were told, stay at home unless you drop those messages. The only message allowed out here is stop Hitler, Trump. That's it, period. So that's what, when you say buying off a protest, buying off a movement, that's what it looks like. You try to explain it to people, and it's too much for them to understand, and they kind of have a breakdown. And it's really, really tragic. The other part I'll get into, if we have time, is the police and how they related to the protesters. That's a whole nother topic, but that's the mess. That's the optics going in. And it's very hard to communicate this to people when they think that you're attacking the message or the intention of the people, which we're not. We're attacking the people puppeteering the message and using people's emotion against them, as they always do.
Fam shared the whole, and I had it too. Democrats funded ICE. Democrats funded ICE. Democrats, the budget. It's like that's the main message out there. If you're really, and we had Sheriff Alex Villanueva even say on this show, Obama was the deporter in chief, man. Like this guy deported so many more people. Go ahead, Fam. I'm sorry.
I want to see the video, but I just gotta say this makes our job 10,000 times harder, because that's it's things always happen like this in the US when it comes to protesting. Everything gets captured. Like, it starts out fine, and then suddenly bam, the fucking Democrats come in. You have Gavin Newsom. Fam, you have Alex Padilla all over the news. Alex Padilla,
I know,
the former Secretary of State that we despise because he refuses to allow fair elections in California, is now a victim because he was pushed out of the ground,
fam.
Oh God, it's just so awful. It makes our job so much harder because
they're good at it. They're good at it. They're very good at co-opting and controlling and changing the message to what they want. They're very good at it.
Yeah. So I did the report for RT in the morning, and I admit my prediction was kind of off, because I said all of the chaos that had already been formed here in LA already sent the message out that the protesters are out of control. Clearly, the people that showed up that morning, the older white people, as I mentioned, they didn't see any problem. When you asked them they go, there is no problem. See, there's no problem. Everyone's making it up. Don't you dare report there's any problems. And they were yelling we were trying to report, hey, so far, so good. They're like, don't say so far, so good. They were coming into the feed. It was crazy. And it was like, you guys, calm down. We're just saying it's so far, so good. It was chaos last weekend. It's not right now. So I went on and did my report very honestly and said, hey, this is basically what I just told you guys. Here are all the levels that people don't understand about this. But overall, my prediction was wrong, because I said nothing's really going to happen here. The damage had already been done in LA. The message had been sent. So people are going to go home and say, see, they were lying to you. Everything was peaceful and cool. Well, unfortunately, the protest ended at 4:00 Pacific. That's what it said on the flyer. So technically, you should probably disperse at that point. At 5:00, the police started unloading their weapons on the crowd for no reason at all. And that needs to be said. There were other people reporting that it was a response to something. It was not a response. They sent the text out The text said this is an unlawful protest, and therefore, and this is by the last segment we were talking about, just because it's the law or just because they say it doesn't mean it's right. So they say it's unlawful. Now they have the green light to fire on people. So yeah, go ahead and play. This is me realizing I had mispredicted how this thing would end, but this, and all the older white people had left already. So this is the younger crowd dealing with this garbage from the police. Here we go.
Okay, they're firing at the crowd right now. Nobody showed up here with any weapons. The weapons are being provided by the police. They are shooting into the crowd right now. Peaceful protest. This is not going to end well. They just keep firing at us. I think we need to get to safety here. What started as a perfectly peaceful protest has now been infiltrated by the police themselves. They didn't even need an excuse to start firing. They just started firing. Here we go. Okay, they're still doing it. 40 people. Some major injuries already earlier. Now they're just gonna. Alright. Yeah, we're gonna have to get over to a safer place. I don't know where that might be because they kind of got the whole place surrounded. There's this city hall right over here.
Peach from guys, I gotta go. I have a heart out. I'm so sorry. I love you guys. You guys wrap it up, and I'll see you guys back on Friday.
It's unbelievable that they could create this state of chaos by lining up their trained IDF police, which are trained by Israel, line up and attack the people they're supposed to be protecting. That's what they're doing right now. They're moving in on the people right now. Firing into the crowd right now. Why? To create the chaos.
So
I love that you end on the sign 40% of cops beat their wives.
So this part is just, it's very difficult to have this part of the conversation because neither side wants to have it. They don't. So you have the left that they want to present to the world that everything is fine. And if you have a problem with what went down in the streets, then you are a bad actor trying to make them look bad. So you can't talk about it. The right, obviously, we know that drill. This is about, hey, we need to punish these people. They're out of control. We have this Antifa, radical lefty, commie narrative that has been already established George Floyd days. So they were ready to jump on this and say, of course the police were there to protect them, and they attacked them first. So the police were protecting themselves. So nobody wants to have this conversation. But there's a lot to unpack here. Let me just, if Jayme, could you put up the one with the injury? Because there were so many injuries. And so that just happened to be what I got on camera, but we were running for safety. Our other guy that I was working with TR, we were also doing stuff for TRT Turkey. He got massive problems with the spray, chemicals in his eye. He's not okay today. This is 40 hours later. He's still not okay. This guy, you can see he's dealing with an injury here. Right in the back of the head by his ear. Really, really bad injury here.
So what were they firing? Were they firing the rubber bullets?
So it was a combo of rubber bullets and these gas bombs. They're smoke bombs, and then there was this like pepper spray that was mixed into the smoke bomb. So look. I believe, and I'm kind of speculating here that on paper they can get away with it because they're supposed to do it at the ground, right? At safety. And they're just supposed to. It's supposed to be the sound. We're just getting people to leave because the protest is over, but they're not. you maybe couldn't notice in that shot, but they are firing at people. They are not. Some of them are firing into the ground. Great, but they all have a gun. They're all ready to fire. They're aiming at people and they're dropping. And I saw random people drop. Look, there are no deaths reported, so we're not saying that. Although I did hear there is one death in Utah. This was coordinated. I want to tell all of our right-wing friends that think, hey, we had a right to protest at January 6th, but these guys are out of control. Obviously the trucker convoy in Canada, that was cool. They got screwed, but these guys deserve it. I want them to be paying attention and understand that if you think that it's because the protesters were out of control, then why did every single major city have the same text that came through that said unlawful protest? Police are going to respond to you. Why did every one of them go that way? And I would go further and say, if one of those cities had the peaceful protest, would they not have gotten that text? Would they not have fired? Because I haven't seen one example of that happening. Every one of them were coordinated to fire. And there's injuries being reported all over the country, massive ones. I heard of one of somebody's eye got taken out in Atlanta. Okay, so one death in Utah, and eye got taken out in Atlanta. And everything I saw on the ground in LA was really, really bad. That was one example. Another guy had blood going down his whole chest. These people aren't attacking the police. They were protesting peacefully. I was wrong. My prediction was wrong. I thought this would just be, all for show. Hey, we did it. Everyone else was lying about last weekend. Last weekend was a little different because there were provocateurs in the crowd that started those fires on those Waymos that did attack the police. They had bricks set up in Compton. We went through all of that last week. I didn't see any bricks set up. I didn't see people with weapons that they brought. Nobody had weapons. The police had the only weapon. And our big aha moment this weekend, as opposed to last weekend, our big aha moment was, would you look at that? The police don't actually need a provocateur incident to start firing. They can just start firing. Wow.
That's incredible. It takes me back, really. Do you think that they're going to continue, or do you think that, after this, things are going to die out? Do you think that anything could happen, say for 4th of July? That's, American pride, patriotism, celebration. Meanwhile, look what's happening, all over the world.
So that's a two-part question, because I do think 4th of July is something we need to look at. But as far as this particular moment, this movement, this buildup, abolish ICE and stop these raids. Again, Trump they're not happening. He's back to his 600 a day deportation, 600, half of Obama's average per day. Let's be very clear, half. So we're back to the 600 a day. So that part, you could make an argument, I guess, that the protest helped lower those numbers. No, they were always going to be back to normal. I think that's my opinion. But here we are, the Walton heiress of Walmart, who funded this majority of this. And if you go on the website of No Kings, it has a whole list of backers that are all NGOs, every one of them. And you can't even click on the logos. They're just the logos. How interesting. Nobody wants to go on the website. They don't have time. They have time to make a sign that has a swastika next to Trump. They don't have a time to go on the website and check for the NGO list that you can't even click on the links to. But the point of buying this protest up and capturing it was to end it after Saturday. It's over. I went back there on Sunday. I had to go get my car. It was locked because the whole street was locked out. They closed the garage. I was like, oh, this sucks. Went back, got my car, completely deserted. It's done. It's over. And that was a Sunday. So if Sunday it was done, it's certainly done after that. I'll keep my eyes open, but I'm telling you, Fee, it was coordinated to end. That was the point. Capture it, end it. But hey, at least we told the world that Trump was becoming Hitler on his birthday, and we warned you. And now what? What is your next move? You have nothing to say. Well, no. Look, again, I don't want to bash the people. They got captured. They're victims in this. The people that, again, this part's important. The organizations that wanted to be against NATO, wanted to be against Israel, wanted to be against imperialism, wanted to be against the surveillance state. They were told, do not show up if you bring that messaging. That messaging does not belong on this. So here we are. And no, nothing's going to happen. I don't believe next couple weeks. Although when we get to July 4th, that's a different story. I think we have to keep our eye on that. A possible false flag. We know about a potential bioterrorism report. We reported that on the Homeless Left. Dr. David Martin came on, discussed this. Fee, I don't know. For me on Twitter, it was pretty phenomenal when I shared this out. I did a 5-minute clip. 500,000 people have seen this. They're looking. They're prepared. Something's might be happening on July 4th, and it might include a combo of best of 9/11 and COVID all mixed into one, where they attack us with a bioweapon and then blame it on a foreign entity. And I'd say at this point, most likely Iran.
And that's a way to end the show, because that's what we can see coming. And I agree with you. I think something is coming, based on how, the geopolitical stage is at this point. I think people need to make those connections. It's frustrating that these people weren't allowed in, but it just tells you everything about the co-option and who's organizing these protests. Because if that happened, if we were able to unite these protests, and I've seen it get close in the George Floyd times and 2020 and after, but never quite there. It's always derailed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that, but who knows? I mean, there's so much going on right now with Iran and Russia and Ukraine and the US and Israel. I mean, there's just so much going on. So Matt, let everybody know where they can find you, as if they don't know already. Homeless Left and anything else you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, the Homeless Left on Rumble. They took our YouTube channel down, so our new channel on YouTube is THL Presents. You can just type it in. It's hard to come up on a search engine, but we're doing pretty well. We've been up there 5 months. We just qualified for monetization. I don't know how they haven't pulled it yet, but yeah, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble. And then, I go on with Garland Nixon once a week. We talk about Hollywood politics here and how the Zionist Hollywood takeover. So we do a little discussion there. And then this Tuesday, so we're on Tuesdays, Thursdays on the Homeless Left. And so tomorrow, I think we're going to be talking with one of our another on the ground. We realized Caleb Maupin was out here and he had a report, and we're going to have a discussion with him about what he saw. We might get into a little debate about what actually happened, because we were all there to see it. And this is what journalism should be about. This is what it should be about. We should have friendly discourse and, hey, what's your take? What's your take? And I love what you do here on the TruthWire. Fiorella, this is what it's about. And I appreciate the audience. I appreciate all the engagement. Rock on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear you and Caleb, because Caleb has a different, I would say, political stance when it came to Trump. He was more welcoming of Trump, and I've always discussed that with Caleb. So it'll be interesting to see, the dynamics of how that works out. Looking forward to actually hearing that. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Jayme, for awesome. And Jayme, I still want to do that Andor show with you, but when I'm better and not dying. As always, just check out my Substack, everybody, and X and Telegram. So we'll see you next time. What is it? Truth out? Oh God.
Yeah, that's it. Truth out.
He's got me saying it. He's got me saying it now.
You love it.
Bye, guys.